Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is a public hearing / regular school board meeting for the San Felipe del Rio Consolidated Independent School District Board of Trustees. Today being Monday, March 27, 2023. Can someone please call roll? Ms. Gonzalez?
Someone by the name of Ms. Gonzalez, okay. I guess.
We don't have our secretary here.
Once a secretary, always a secretary. I'm delighted to do it, sir. Ms. Luna Chavez?
Present.
Mr. Overfelt?
Present.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Ms. Guanajuato Webb? Ms. Haynes? Mr. Galindo?
Present.
And myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting has been duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This time we will have opening ceremonies, first with a moment of silence, and could we again have a special moment of silence for all the children affected in Nashville, Tennessee, the staff, the school employees, all the children. Again, let us reflect on those children that are all affected by today's senseless shooting. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. This time we're going to move 2 items up. We do have some people from out of town here, and that's under business A, 13A and B. Again, business and finance. This is discussion possible action to enter a resolution to designate and authorize conveyance of title to the highest bidder per section 34.05 of the Texas Property Code for tax foreclosed properties struck off in trust to the taxing authorities. Amy Childers. Oh, Sonia Gonzalez, Line Bargain.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, Superintendent Rios, and board members. These 2 cases we filed judgments on for delinquent taxes. We took them to sell. They did not sell. We didn't have a minimum bid. So they've been struck off. They haven't been on the roll. And the city of Del Rio is interested in purchasing these properties. The county has approved their bid. They have submitted a bid, so I'm going to refer to the first one, which is cause number 27345, Valverde County et al. Versus Jose Arturo Riojas et al. This property is located on 419 East Garza, next to fire station number 3, and the city is using to utilize that land for the fire station. And they have proposed a minimum bid on that of $1,386. And that basically will cover the court cost fees, the district clerk fees. Again, they're not looking to pay the taxes. They're waiving theirs. They're asking the school to essentially waive theirs. The county has waived their portion, but that's what they're looking to utilize it for. We are required by law to bring any bid that falls under the minimum bid amount to the governing body for consideration and approval. Do I have any questions on that one before I move on to the next bid by the city?
Any questions from board members? Hearing none.
Okay, the next cause number is 32831, Valverde County et al. Versus Micaela Gutierrez. This particular property involves Lot 7 and Lot 8. So these are two lots, but they're under the same lawsuit. This is located along San Felipe Creek on Magnolia near intersection of Cantu Street. It's located within the FEMA designated floodway and floodplain. And my understanding is that the city intends to utilize it as a park. And for this particular property, they have submitted a minimum bid of $1,033. Again, that would cover the district clerk fees, their court cost fees. This has gone before the county. It has been approved, so I'm just bringing it to the school board as required by Texas law.
Questions from board members? Yes, Mr. Orfeld.
I can understand the one for next to the firehouse, because you could put in a parking lot and that would benefit the fire station down there. The stuff down in the floodplain that's on the FEMA site, and I didn't get to go drive by or look at it, but were there structures on it, or is it just land at this point, or were there structures prior to 1998, the flood of 98?
It looks, from what we gathered from the appraisal district, that there were structures prior to, let me pull up the information, it should be in the packet. At this point, it looks vacant, looks like there's a lot of vegetation. The problem is because of the FEMA designation, no one wants to touch it. You don't want no one is willing to come in with a minimum bid just because of the work and the state requirements that it'll take to get it up to par to get it back on the roll. So that's a struggle we've been having with that property.
So I understand that. So I know that in a lot of the areas where the FEMA designation is posted, FEMA buyout, and you're not allowed to build. So I'm curious why the city would want to put a park in somewhere where the federal government says you can't erect any structures because it's in a floodplain. Because technically, playground equipment would be kind of like Rotary Parks in the floodplain. I'm just curious about that. Maybe you could send an update later on as to how the city gets around the FEMA designation of no build.
We'd be happy to get back with the city, look into that, and provide you with that answer if that's going to be contingent on the approval of the sale, or you just for informational?
I'm just curious because it's, two pieces of property that nobody bid on, and a government entity is going to get them real cheap. So, because we're going to waive all the taxes that we have leaned against it, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. And with what's coming down the pipeline from the legislature and all of that, it's getting to the point of counting pennies everywhere. So I'm just curious. So just a thought or an inquiry. It's not going to affect the vote tonight.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, you want to read the recommendation, please?
So Amy will read it.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees discuss and take possible action to enter a resolution to designate and authorize the conveyance of title to the highest bidder per section 34.05I of the Texas Property Tax Code for tax foreclosed property struck off in trust to the taxing authorities.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion made by Mr. Galindo? Is there a second to the motion? Motion made by Becky Chavez. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go on to item 13B, discussion possible action to enter resolution approving the public sale pursuant to section 3405 of the Texas Property Code of certain real estate properties previously struck off to the taxing authorities pursuant to section 34.01, section C of the Texas Property Tax Code for delinquent ad valorem taxes assessed and allow the public sale of the properties to the highest bidder. Again, Sonia.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. Again, these are properties that previously went to sheriff's sale. We did not receive any minimum bid, so they were struck off to the taxing entities. In the attachment, and the issue with these, we've been working with the city because most of them had pretty large amounts of code compliance liens. So people were not going to touch these properties. So we were not receiving minimum bids on this, even in a private resale. So in conjunction, in working with the city, we were able to get them to agree to waive their respective code compliance liens. But in addition, we are proposing to reduce the minimum bids. These are older, dilapidated, many vacant properties, and they've been sitting off the roll, and they're not generating any revenue at this point for the school district. So we have proposed lowering the minimum bids, waiving those code compliance liens, and then taking them back for a public resale. So if this is approved to these proposed minimum bid amounts, which most of them, if you look at the original minimum bid and what is being proposed, you're looking at about average 50% cut as far as the price goes. And we would take those to public sale at the agreed upon reduced amount with the waiver of those code compliance liens. Again, city has approved the amounts as well as the waiver of the liens. The county has approved the reduced amounts, and now we're bringing it before the school board for your consideration.
So this lot would go up for public auction.
All of these, and I believe there's a total of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, there's 10, and we would take them to public auction with a reduced minimum bid amount. That's proposed there on the sheet.
Any questions from board members? Amy, you want to read the recommendation, please?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees discuss and take possible action to enter a resolution approving the public sale of certain real properties previously struck off to the taxing authorities pursuant to Section 34.01C of the Texas Property Tax Code for delinquent ad valorem taxes assessed to said properties.
You've heard the recommendation. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Mr. Overfelt. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Emilio Alindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And once again, I'd like to officially thank you for hosting us during Val Verde County Days. On behalf of all the taxing entities, the county, the city, the school, the hospital, thank you for hosting us in Austin, okay?
It was our pleasure. Thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you, and have a
Thank you.
safe trip. At this time, we have citizens to be heard. We have no citizens to be heard. At this time, we have a public hearing. We're on item 6. I'll call this public hearing to order. Again, we are item 6A, 2021-2022 Texas Academic Performance Report, TAPER Report. Ida Gomez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Every year, we come before you to present the annual performance report. The one we're presenting tonight is for the 21-22 school year. There are 7 components in the required report, and all of you should have a copy of the summary at your area. The 7 required components include the TAPER report, the financial rating, the district accreditation status, House Bill 3 goals and measures, district's current special ed compliance status, report of violent or criminal incidents, and performance of the previous year's graduates in their first year of college. So those are the 7 areas that we will report tonight. First of all, for 2021-2022, the accountability rating for the school district was a B. The special ed determination status, which needed assistance, all requirements were met for component 5. And the requirements were also met for career exploration. The district does offer the ASVAB alternative test to students. Board members, the next 5 pages are the STAR EOC reports. Just to give you a brief update of how the report runs, over on the left-hand side, you will see the grade level and the content. Under that, it will break up the content by approaches, meets, and masters. And it does compare 2 years. So it will be 2022 compared to 2021. Your copies, you will see that for the next 5 pages, in all but 1 or 2 areas, the district improved, showed an increase from 2021 to 2022, and that's under the district column. If you look at the next 5 pages, you will see it all highlighted in green. Now, this report compares us to the state and to the region. So across the top, you'll see the school year, you'll see the state percentage, you'll see the region percentage, and then the district. I can go through all the contents, but I'll just follow with 3rd grade reading, for instance, and you'll see that it's all in green, meaning we outperformed last year's percentages. 3rd grade math, again, increased. I'm on page 3 of 33. 4th grade reading, we outperformed in all 3 areas, approaches, meets, and masters. 4th grade math, again, we outperformed in approaches, meets, and masters from the following year. It continues on with 5th grade reading at the bottom, going on to page 4. Page 4 is the reading for 5th grade. We increased in all areas. 5th grade math, we increased in all areas. And 5th grade science, we increased in all areas. In 6th grade reading, for the approaches, not only did we increase, but we were the same as Region 15 with a 67%. At the meets level, the district was the same as the state and outperformed the region, who was at a 41. And at masters, the district was the same at a 21% as the region. In 6th grade math, the district outperformed the region and the state. I'm at the bottom of page 4. And you'll see that they're color-coded in red for the region and the state, and the district is color-coded in green, where we outperformed their percentages. That was for 6th grade. They did the same thing at the meets and the master's level on page 5. You'll see that San Felipe Memorial at 41% outperformed the state at the meets at 39% and the region at 34%. And at masters at 19%, they outperformed the state at 16% and the region at 12%. We'll continue on page 5. You'll see 7th grade reading. Approaches, meets, and masters, they did show increases from 2021 to 2022. 7th grade math also increases. And 8th grade reading also increases in all 3 components. The 8th grade math at a 69% was equivalent to the region. I'm on page 6. On 8th grade science, you'll see that last year we had a 54% in 8th grade science, and this year we had a 61%. In social studies, we had a 45% at approaches, and this year we had a 51%. Those are the 2 areas where the meets and masters did not outperform last year. Moving on to end of course for English 1, you'll see that at a 66%, our English 1 percentages outperformed the state and the region. At the meets level at 50%, they also outperformed the state and the region. End of course for English 2 at the bottom of page 6. At approaches, they were equivalent to the state, and they did outperform the region. For the meets, they were equivalent to the state, and they did outperform the region. And then moving on to page 7, at the masters, they did outperform the region for English 2. For Algebra 1, at 81%, our district did outperform the state and the region at the approaches. At 39%, they did, oh, that was the state one. They did outperform the region, and at 20%, they were equivalent to the region for the masters. For the end of course biology, at 81%, they were equivalent to the region. At the meets, they were at 46%, 5 percentage points higher than last year, and at 13% meets, 2 percentage points higher than last year. And then for U.S. history, you'll see that it's all green, 87%, 3 percentage points higher than last year, a 65, and at the master's level at a 40%, they did outperform the region. The next page, which will show page 18 in your packet, board members, you do have the entire report in that binder. We select the data that's pertinent or not repetitive. They will show it in multiple ways, the same data in multiple ways. But I can answer any questions you may have. Page 18, we're looking at attendance rates. So at the top of it, if you look at, this one compares 2019-2020 to 2020-2021. This criteria is always a year behind because it takes into account graduates. That's part of the report. So you'll see there that our attendance rate was at a 92.6. In 2019-2020, we just want to remind everyone that that was the year that we had a lot of flexibility. I don't believe we reported attendance for possibly the 6th week, the 5th 6 weeks, possibly even the 4th 6 weeks. So the attendance level looks very high. That was a solid COVID year. But when we came back out of COVID, you will see that in 2020, 2021, we're back to a 92. Just in case you're wondering what the disparity, why there's such a discrepancy. The annual dropout rate from 20 to 2021 went from a 0.8 to a 1.0 in grades 7 and 8, and in grades 9 through 12, it remained at a 2.5. Also on this report, you'll see the 4-year report for graduates, and those are highlighted in a light blue. You'll see that we did have 8.4% dropout for the class of 2021, with a total graduating class of 91.6.
We have a question, okay?
Yes, sir.
Is that all right if we interrupt?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
On the chronic absenteeism,
Yes, sir.
do you correlate that jump to what we talked about with attendance rate?
Yes, sir.
Because of coming out of COVID?
The flexibility that we had to count students present via phone call, via not having to be physically there at 10 o'clock, that would be it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So, again, the report's going to show you the 2020 class, the 5-year longitude, and if we go now to page 22, we start getting the information for our CCMR. About the middle of the page, I would like to point out 3 or 4 areas where the district is outperforming the state. In our AP assessments, you'll see it an 8.9 compared to the state at a 6.6. Our associate's degrees at a 10.0, with the state coming in at a 2.6 and the region at a 2.3. You can see that the district is showing very good success there. Our dual courses at a 46.9. The region is trailing close with a 47, but the state is a 25.9, almost twice as many dual credit courses here in the district. And our on-ramps at 17.6 annual graduates compared to 4.4 for the state and 5.3 for the region. So again, those areas of study at the secondary level are very strong areas, and our students are doing very well, all being prepared for college and/or careers. At the bottom of that page, on page 22, you will see the approved industry-based certifications. Again, something that they track very heavily. And you'll see on page 23, the results are the district at a 28.3, with the state at an 18.4 and the region at a 19.5. And those are for the industry-based certifications. Followed by the level 1 or level 2 certificates, the district's at a 9.6, while the state is a 0.7 and the region a 3.6. We're also very proud of the graduates with completed IEP or workforce readiness. 4.0 of our graduates have that, along with the advanced diploma plan for our special ed students at a 2.7, which increased from last year to 2.4. I know that's a lot of information on the assessments, but as you can see, a lot of increase from last year when we compare it, and in many areas, especially our secondary areas, outperforming the district, the region and the state.
Before we go on,
Yes, sir.
I have some questions, okay?
Yes, sir.
Some of it will be editorial with what's going on. I'll start with attendance. We used to have some leverage where we would take students that are, again, I'll call them, high absence attendees, where we have 18 plus absences per semester, that we could do something about by referring them to the court system. We don't have any leverage in regard to that. I always look at attendance.
Correct.
And right now, the 88th legislative session is looking into funding for enrollment versus ADA. But I keep looking at the attendance report and always bringing up the fact that, we could do more. It's been an improvement the last few months, the last few semesters. But again, we were left without any leverage to be able to get these students back. So that's been an issue. In regard to the scores, the learning loss, I looked at percentages of masters. We have a lot less students at masters, at the master's level. When I look at science 4th and 8th, we're not doing so well compared to the region. We did great with Algebra 1. SAT, very proud of 100%. On-ramps has always excelled, thanks to the, again, instructors, teachers that we have
Correct.
for the on-ramps. The same thing with the industry certifications. But I always look at the column with the bilingual ESL, and we're not anywhere near where we need to be in that area. I know I always bring this up, Dr. Rios, and those are the students that we eventually lose when they get to freshmen. Before they graduate, we have been for years looking at this number of students, and many of them do not reach the final goal of graduation. So again, attendance is critical. I'm glad we have the principals here. I know I always highlight the high areas and also mention the low areas. But there's been an effort here to be able to send the parental people to make home visits and so forth. But again, I hope that there's something that comes out of the funding for enrollment versus ADA. But I would like to, again, increase the number of masters, the students that are at that level, because when I compare it to the state, to the region, we are below. Science, again, mentioned 4th and 8th. Algebra 1 did great, but then I look at the math, for example, I'm concerned with some of the areas, 7th grade, secondary math. But we need to focus on our ESL, our bilingual students as well. Sometimes I see the green highlighted numbers, and yet, I can tell you some areas, but I'm not going to go into detail. It would take forever. Where we have green, but we're below the region.
Yes.
Which, we're okay, but not quite. And I understand there's been a learning loss, and sometimes we're at a disadvantage if we don't have them in the classroom where they're not there, they're not learning. But we need to make every effort again to improve in all areas, whether it's a bilingual or whether it's science 4th and 8th, secondary math as well. I'm not going to go into other detail. I've highlighted some areas, but it would be very time-consuming. So we'll go on to the other sections.
Components 2 and 3 are the financial rating and the district accreditation. You'll see there that the first one is financial rating, an A, superior achievement rating for first, and the accreditation is the school is accredited. So we've met all those requirements. Component 4, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board, is the House Bill 3 goals that came into effect in 2019 by the Commissioner of Education at that time. So you'll see the very next one, you'll see for reading, it's the very first chart. It is not numbered, but at the top it will say yearly target goals, and over on the left column it says 3rd grade reading. This is at the meets category. So it only tracks the meets. Approaches, meets, and masters, it's only the middle. It was a 5-year goal. So at that time, we have the district goal, and then we have the campus goals. A formula was formulated so that every campus would have to reach a certain goal for the district to meet the district goal. So you'll see there how we've been tracking it, and we do report on it every year. Currently, it's in the yellow. You'll see that right above it. For the 2022 goal, I'm right in the middle. The district goal was a 43. We met it at a 40, so we didn't quite meet it. We were short. You'll see there across, though, that Buena Vista, Garfield, and RBB did meet or surpass their goal. For instance, Buena Vista needed a 42. They met it with a 43%. Garfield needed a 36. They met it with a 42. And RBB needed an 84% and met it with a 90. The other campuses are in red because they didn't quite meet their goal. When we formulate it together, you'll see that the district is still 3 percentage points below what we need it to be. You'll see in yellow the goal for this year. That is the target goal across the top in blue for each campus. And once the 2023 results come out, we will input and track right below it. For math, we follow the same formula, and you'll see there that in 2022, we had 2 campuses, Garfield and RBB, that did meet their 2022 House Bill 3 goal. This is only for third graders, and this is only for math. The other campuses did fall short, and they are shown in red. And in the yellow highlight in the blue font, you will see the goal that they are striving to meet this year to get back on track so that the district can meet their goal. Yes, sir.
Questions, Mr. Galindo?
On these yearly target goals, the district goals, the percentage that's there, is this from the state or TE, or is this a number that the district put?
Really, that's the number that the principals set for themselves in working for their teachers.
Okay.
But it is a state initiative, so we track it.
Okay.
But the principals could have laid out a goal to meet it over 10 years, and then they would have either been meeting it or not, but this is totally an in-house goal.
Okay, no, I was just wondering, just had that quick question. Thank you for that.
And as we just reported, the CCMR goals, and we just showed it on the TAPER report. And you'll see here that for 2020, the target goal was a 74. We were not rated. In 2021, the target goal was a 77. They made a 67. But that converts, that's just the raw score. That converted to 92% of our students meeting CCMR. In 2022, the target was an 81. They made a 64, regressed just a tad, and the goal is, the percentage is a 91. So for the CCMR goal, it's very strong. The goal is to increase it to a 92 by August of 2025, and you'll see there that last year it was a 92 and this year it's a 91. We'll be right back on track. Component 6 is we have to report on violent or criminal incidents. And at the very bottom, this is a very small report or font, but the very last line in the print at the bottom of that page actually reads that due to updates made by TEA, 77 out of the 79 felony controlled substance violations were reclassified as non-felony controlled substance violations. So 2 did stand, but 77 were reclassified.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
just a reminder, that's a waiver that we submitted, and that was approved.
Vaping devices.
Yes, sir.
And the final component for the annual report is the performance of previous year's graduates in their first year of college. You'll see on the page towards the end, we have our 3 high schools, Blended Academy, Del Rio Early College, and Early College High School. You'll see at Blended Academy, there was 3 students that did report that they were going to go to a 2-year public college. Out of those 3, we don't have any information on how they did. There's nothing to track. This is why you see this part empty. If you go now to Del Rio Early College High School, you'll see that we had 59 students that went to a 4-year or a 2-year university, the 45 and the 14. And across the top, you'll see that 11 students had greater than a 2.0, 5 students had between a 2.0 and 2.49, 12 students had a 2.5 to 2.99, and so forth. That's the data, and they do track the students, but only for the first year. We have inquired about them tracking for longer, and it's just a first-year requirement. For Del Rio High School, we do have a total of 85 students who registered at a 4-year public university and 139 that registered at a 2-year public college. And again, the results for their performance after the first year from greater than 2.0 to greater than 3.5, and it's broken up by the different category sections there. It shows you the number of students. And then the last sheet is a list of the universities that our students did go to with the number of students attending. For instance, Southwest Texas Junior College did have 111 students enrolled as part of that program and so forth. That is a summary of the 7 components, board members. If there are no questions, or if there are any questions, I can answer them.
Now's the time, board members. I have a ton more questions, but I'll save for a few. Dr. Rios, I don't know how we can get another report with the whole revamping of the STAR test, which again will be all online, different formats for the answer. I don't know how this could be presented to board members for, again, benchmarking, but with the new format of the testing.
Mr. Mesa, I think that having a presentation on the revamping of the test is important, because in the next presentation, Ms. Gomez was going to share the results of the benchmarks. So the benchmarks compared to the previous year are significantly lower, but a lot has to do with the new type of assessments that we're taking. So I think I think there's a lot of wisdom in that suggestion, because it'll explain some of these scores. So we could, we can definitely follow up with a presentation at the next board meeting.
And I really would like the concentration to be the bilingual students, to see, again, how they're being prepared for the tests.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
There's a lot of information, and again, we have lots of reading to do. And any other questions that come up? We'll-
No, I was just going to say that it is a lot of information. However, you know, this is very good report, though. I know that it takes a lot to do this type of reports, but eventually, you know, yes, I would also like to hear on the benchmarks, which we know we have, and then follow it from there with the STAR test.
And it's also a good weightlifting exercise with all the heavy packets.
Yes.
And for that, it's Michelle Smith and her department that put it together, the binders.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to
Thank
them.
you.
Thank you. Okay, this, again, I'll ask for any public comments for the TAPER report. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the public hearing and go on to the next item we have on our agenda, and the next item is item 8A, reports, term 4, attendance and discipline combined report.
Do you want to present, or do you have any questions? It was provided.
I'll ask the board members. Any questions?
Uh,
We have the report.
stand-
Mr. Orfeld.
Stand by. On, I guess, Del Rio Middle School. Del Rio Middle School, for the discipline, they're, you know, it seems to either be trending upward or staying upwards all the time when we look at insubordination, issue of profanity, and then persistent misbehavior on campus. 79 cases of persistent misbehavior on campus. When we say persistent misbehavior, what are we classifying as persistent misbehavior? Being tardy, violating student code of conduct. What would be persistent misbehavior?
Good evening, Mr. Overfelt. Persistent misbehavior, for a student to be coded with a persistent misbehavior, there must be at least 5 discipline referrals on file for that student, and they could range anywhere from, mostly what we see is the student code of conduct, whether it's skipping class or if they're being disciplined for tardy or if it's an insubordination. It just seems to be a constant behavior issue with the students.
Okay, so 5. Once you reach 5 referrals, you also get coded as persistent. So 79 at 5. This is why I teach government, not history. Is almost 400, right? Referrals, I guess, in just that that 30-day time period or so.
Sorry, can I ask Mr. Guralo to clarify, because I just don't believe that's the case at all. Yes.
Good evening, President Mesa and Dr. Rios, members of the board. To clarify a little bit on the persistent misbehavior, so we do have our demerit system that categorizes more minor behaviors. However, every 6 weeks, if students get to a certain threshold, which is on the 6th or 7th demerit, then those will constitute more of a discipline referral. So that would be discipline referral 1, but they've already received 7 demerits. That can be one of the case for accruing the referrals that could be seen as persistent misbehavior. And then also they could be just separate, a little bit higher on offense for the student code, the violation, the conduct code violation.
So specifically, a student has 6 teachers. Any one of the teachers could have given the child a demerit. He could have gotten a demerit, I say he, but could be a female. She could have gotten a demerit, or he could have gotten a demerit in first period, and then a week later gotten one in second period. Then the 3rd week, he could have gotten one in 3rd, 4th, and 5th period. And those would all add up. And that would automatically generate a referral without any single teacher having to generate a referral. Is that correct?
So once they hit that threshold, it is classified as a referral, and then we process it as a discipline referral.
So the demerit system we have automatically generates that because it keeps count on it.
Okay, so the demerit system, any of the other campuses use this system, or is it, does high school use demerit? All the elementaries use it, 6th, 7th, or 6th grade? Okay. So when we're talking demerits, you were tardy to class. That's a demerit, or you backtalk the teacher, or what falls on, what's a demerit?
So tardies usually don't fall under a demerit. Persistent tardiness can be classified, but it's usually going to be classroom rules that students break, and anything that's more seen as minor, day to day. If you talk back, or if you're throwing something around the classroom, somewhat of a constant disruption, those are the things that are going to get students a demerit.
And when that demerit is issued, are y'all requiring the teacher to contact the parent?
So what we do is on the 4th demerit each 6 weeks, that's the requirement for the teacher that gives the 4th demerit to reach out to the parent and give them a summary. Since they are more on the minor side, that way the parents can get a good understanding of what's going on. And then on the 5th one, as it progresses, we typically will do an after-school detention, and then it continues to progress. until, we can have a parent conference, and then we start issuing out referrals. What we're trying to do is keep them in the classroom as long as we can with giving them a progression of interventions.
Okay. Yeah. All right, I'll continue to wrap my head around that. I appreciate the explanation. That'll be me for the rest of it, sir. I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rubio. Thank you, Mr. Rubio. Any other questions in regard to, yes, Mr. Alindo?
And just to kind of continue, so there was 79 just in this 6 weeks period alone, but the accumulation starts from when? So are you saying that the accumulation is like, they get 5 demerits, and then once they hit the 5th or 6th one, then they'll be number 1 for the persistent misbehavior on campus?
Right, so out of the enrollment of approximately 1,400 kids, correct? More or less? 1,500 kids.
That's how many people hit that
79
status this?
kids hit 5 or more demerits.
Okay. And then just the insubordination, is that just, like you're saying, the talking back and but they can be in both of these categories, so persistent misbehavior and the insubordination? Okay. Just the numbers,
Yes, this is not a unique student count, so you can have one student in multiple areas on the
Okay.
graph.
Anyone else?
I just,
Becky?
so they really have a lot, a pretty good amount of opportunity to correct before they get a demerit that is more on the serious side?
That's the purpose of it, ma'am, yes.
That up to the 7, that's quite opportunities for the student to correct themselves.
Correct.
Okay.
We're good with that? Okay, thank you. No further questions. Okay, next item we have on reports is item 8B, survey results for the 2023-2024 San Felipe Del Rocio ISD school calendar. Aide Garcia.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Last month, we presented 3 calendar options that the District Planning and Decision-Making Committee developed for the 2023-2024 school year. Since then, we disseminated a survey, and today we're going to share the results with you. We are happy to report, though, that we had an additional 300 employees respond to the service from last year. Last year, we only had 501, and this year we had 795. So we have the common components for the calendar, and that's the July the 4th, the Labor Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving break, the winter break, Martin Luther King Jr., Spring break, Good Friday, the Easter Monday, the Solar Fest, and Memorial Day. These days were on the 3 calendars. Then here we see the difference between the 3 calendars. So option A, winter break starts on December 25th. President's Day, school would be in session. Last day of school, Thursday, May the 30th. Teacher workday on Friday, May the 31st, and graduation also on that same day. Option B had winter break start on December 25th also. Observation of President's Day was observed, so school was not in session. Last day of school, Friday, May the 31st. Graduation was Friday, May the 31st, and the teacher workday on Monday, June the 3rd. Option C had an additional day added for the winter break, which was Friday, December the 22nd. President's Day was not observed on that option. Last day of school, Friday, May the 31st. Graduation, Friday, May 31st. And then the teacher workday on Monday, June the 3rd. So these are the results. Again, we had 795 responses. And the one with the highest votes was option A with 325 votes. Here we have by employee type. We have professionals. We had 489 votes. Paraprofessionals, 218, and our hourly or auxiliary employees, 88. And this is what the calendar looks like, and you do have a copy in your board book. Any questions?
Just a comment.
Yes, Mr. Overfeld.
Sorry. I'm actually surprised at the way it came back. I figured the Friday before Christmas would have been a big, push on option C, but I imagine what the driving factor behind A is getting everything done before May, the end of May. You know, they're not having a teacher work day on the 3rd of June. So I'm guessing that had probably the biggest impact, because I would have figured there would have been, the Friday before Christmas, all things being the same, let's take that. But I'm betting it was the work day either at the end of May or at the beginning of June that drove that. I'm glad we had that number of responses, and I'm sure we will follow on what the teachers wanted when it comes time to vote on that later.
Thank you. Any other comments or
I-
questions?
Yes, before I'll turn it over to Mr. Galindo. I just wanted to applaud your efforts for getting more employees to respond to it. The more people we have, the more satisfaction we have with employees, again, following the calendar and being there on days that they are expected to be there. So I appreciate the efforts of making more people take the survey and getting the results.
We want
Sure.
to thank the principals because there was an email to them. Please encourage your employees to vote. So
That's a
thank
big
you.
difference, so thank you so much.
And
Mr. Galindo?
you just answered my question. I just wanted to see what effort goes into, because I mean, you're at about 55-60% of the employees out of the 1450 or so. And I mean, you send them an email. Is there any other maybe literature or anything that goes out to?
We also create a QR code. So especially for our employees that don't use the computer that much, our auxiliary, they are in the field, we give it to the department head so that then they can share it with them and vote from their phone.
Okay. Just because, I mean, 60% is a good number, especially from what you're going up to, but just encourage everybody to vote. These are your days. These are, you know, the days that you're going to be here, your work days, and it makes a difference as well for your paraprofessionals, your hourly auxiliary. But, you know, just continue encouraging people to vote just for the fact that, you know, we can get up to another goal of 1,000 next year and just keep
Yes.
moving it on. But, you know, that's why we give everybody the right to choose their days to vote, and we just want to make sure everybody knows to exercise their right or is able to have a chance to voice their opinion on it. And like I said, any comments on there, please let us know what they'd like to see, because they do get read, they do get looked at, and we want them to know that these comments do get looked at, and read some of the comments that were in here and to take them into consideration.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Galindo.
Thank
Well,
you.
questions? Anyone else? Okay, then I thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Next item we have is item 8C, benchmark results and comparison update. Ida Gomez.
Good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Our campuses, for the most part, have taken their benchmarks. There's been a few changes from the benchmarks we took last year, which were all on paper, to this year. We do have a few changes or pending items that I will go through. The first new change is that TA has actually offered something called the Texas Through-Year Assessment Pilot. Basically, in a nutshell, what this says is that TA is looking to see if this is something that perhaps would replace the end of the year one-day star, and instead have 3 assessments during the year. So, the Texas Education Agency offered districts the opportunity to participate in what's called TTAP for 5th grade science, 6th and 7th grade math, and 8th grade social studies. And all our campus principals decided to try it. So for those assessments, we have a different report. Basically, what they're doing is it's a shortened assessment. Whatever you teach the first few weeks, you're assessed on. Then you teach the next few weeks, you're assessed on. And then the final is at the end of the year. So it's in chunks. This is going to be a multi-year, fully online pilot that was launched this year. So far, we have done the fall and the winter assessments, and that's the data on the next page. The final and third assessment for those 4 content areas will be the week of April 3rd through the 7th. So if we look at the report again, the very first area, you have the elementary campuses, and it's for 5th grade science. And you'll see that there's a column that says Opportunity 1, and another section that's called Opportunity 2, and then Opportunity 3 is blank. Well, actually, it says Opportunity 2. It should say 3. Just saw that. If you look, Opportunity 1, which was given in early October, you'll see what the approaches, meets, and masters results were. Move forward to Opportunity 2, you'll see an increase in every school, with the exception of Ruben Chavita that just had a couple of percentage points below. Another area to look at is that the meets and masters is all higher than the Opportunity 1. So even though it's not color-coded, you'll see the percentages are provided. So for 5th grade science, you'll see that the students are progressing very nicely. In some areas, North Heights, for instance, and this is an online assessment that TA, that's administered through Cambium, it comes back to us and we do get the results, but I would like to point them out. They went from a 27% for their first round to a 63%. And their meets went from a 1% to a 28%. So we are seeing those efforts. The students are getting a little more used to the online. And 5th grade science looks like it showed some significant growth in most areas. The next section, we have 6th and 7th grade math. So you'll see at the 6th grade, Opportunity 1, they had a 41%, and it increased by the second round to a 46%. For 7th grade math, they started with a 30, and they increased to a 32% for the second test. The third assessment is 8th grade of social studies, and you'll see that they went from a 19% to a 31%. We have a final one. These contents are not allowed to benchmark. This is it. So TA says if you're going to do the pilot, you cannot benchmark. So this is the only data that the principals and the teachers have for these particular contents. It's kind of the decision to go forward with them. We also have to follow their rules. Just a little bit of clarification on the benchmark process. 100% of the benchmarks were administered via the Cambium platform. That is the new STAR EOC platform. This was done for several reasons. The students actually had to use their own login credentials from 3rd grade all the way through high school. They were exposed to the STAR EOC redesign answer choices that Mr. Mesa was referring to earlier. And those who qualified to have some kind of accommodation received their respective accommodation via oral, like maybe repeated it for them, via a dictionary, highlighting tool, magnifying tool, any of those tools. If it was part of their accommodations, they did get it. As a reminder, the new STAR redesign it totally eliminated 100% of a single answer choice. So while last year every question was an A, B, C, D type answer, every question. Now with the new STAR redesign, every question will not be in that format. So 100% of A, B, C, D is eliminated. Students did that. Another thing that we can make in the presentation that Mr. Mesa was referring to, every content, take third grade reading, can have up to 3, 4, 5 questions that are not worth 1 point. They can be worth anywhere from 2 points to U.S. history that has questions up to 26 points for 1 question. Those are what we refer to as they're either multiple choice type where you have to pick 2 or 3 or do something, or they're a written response. If they're a written response, then there's a rubric that they will use to grade. So while we have our benchmark results, our teachers and our principals use the rubric, but as best we know how at this point. Does that make sense? There's a rubric that we followed, but it's our first time using the rubric. And then finally, the data is going to show that we are struggling with the required written responses. Anytime a student has to write the response into a box using that rubric, we did see that the results showed our students are struggling in those areas. So for today's report, board members, we will have results on elementary math and EL reading, San Felipe ELAR, which is English Language Arts and Reading, Del Rio Middle School ELAR, 7th grade, Del Rio Middle School Math and ELAR for 8th grade, and Del Rio Freshman, Del Rio High School, and Early College High School English 1 and 2. The tests that are going to be administered later in the year have not benchmarked. So you'll see we don't have data right now for U.S. history, for Algebra 1, or for biology. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, the TTAP, which is the one that we're taking in chunks 3 times a year, is the 5th grade science, 6th and 7th grade math, and the 8th grade social studies. We'll start with the 3rd grade math. You'll see the elementary campuses. This is for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. All math, the campuses are shown. This is a comparison report from the 2022 benchmark to the 2023 benchmark for each grade level. You'll see the first blue circle at the approaches level. Most campuses are in green. We do have Garfield that went from a 44 last year to a 42. And we do have RBB that was at a 62 and is still at a 62. So this is for math. When you compare that last year everything was paper and pencil, and now the students are having to take the test online for math. They can use scratch paper, but that's it. They have to follow the new 14 type. You'll see that it's an increase almost across all campuses for math. In 4th grade, it's 100% increase from last year's paper and pencil math benchmark to this year's online. And for 5th grade, you'll also see the 3rd circle for math. It's 100% increase from last year's results, paper and pencil, to this year's online. So students getting the accommodations, having access that they need to the calculator, whatever their accommodations are, they can have, is shown in the results. For 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade English Language Arts reading, that goes back to the struggling that we were talking about with the open-ended questions. And you'll see plenty of red in 3rd and 4th grade. Last year, paper and pencil, at this time, when we took the benchmark, had higher passing percentages than the current online. For 3rd grade, for 4th grade. For the fifth grade, we did have 3 campuses that did show increases from last year to this year. That was Buena Vista, Fermín Calderón, and Ruben Chavira. And you'll see those scores in green. Are we good with elementary so far? Yes? Okay. For middle school, this would be math and reading on the same page. So for middle school, you'll see that San Felipe Del Rio took a benchmark last year in paper at 6th grade, along with 7th grade, but this year they're doing that 3 assessments, so we do not have the data because it's 3 assessments that they're going to take. For reading, however, you'll see that both 6th and 7th grade decreased from last year paper and pencil to this year online. And you'll see the same results with Del Rio Middle School 8th grade math. They dropped, and in reading, they dropped from last year where we were to the percentages this year. And I highlighted that in red. Okay. 8th grade science, last year was at a 51, right now we're at a 45, again, all online. Algebra 1 is we've only tested Algebra 1 at the 8th grade. Freshmen in early college and blended academy are scheduled to take their assessments on April 3rd. So you'll see that Algebra 1 at middle school last year had an 86, and they're hanging very close with an 84 this year. But I would like to point out that the meets and masters is higher already than last year. So even though the approaches is a little bit lower, we're at 30% meets and 13% masters for an Algebra 1. For English 1 and 2, again, when you compare the paper assessments last year to what we're doing this year, you will see that in English 1, we are struggling. It's the open-ended. If you ask every teacher, that's what they're struggling. The students are working on how to respond. If you look at English 2, even though you see it in red, it is important to point out that Del Rio freshmen and and early college high school are still in the 90s. So even though it's red because from a 96 to a 91 and a 95 to a 92, they're still in the 90s for being online and having the assessment totally changed. So we would just like to point that out. The very high meets at 71% and at 82 is also something to note. Students are understanding their content. The next page is very small, but it's all these reports put together just so you could see the red and the green in different areas in case you wanted to see an entire report. So the data findings basically let us know that when we compare last year's paper and pencil test to this year's 100% online test, it does reflect a decrease in the ELAR passing percentages across all campuses. That's reading. We have had discussions with campus principals confirming the need to continue working with the new type answer choices and especially with the extended practice and written responses. So since the results came out, since the test, even before then, that is a big, heavy focus. We will continue to work on that. The report does reflect a strong increase in math for the 3rd and 4th and 5th grade levels, and the campuses will also continue to keep up with the rigor needed for continued increases in math. The question came up, well, what strategies are we using? Very targeted strategies. There are 2 for the writing component. And one's not better than the other, it's almost a preference. Most elementary campuses are using what's called a QA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is a formula-based response. A couple of the elementary and most of the middle schools are using something called RACES. And again, it's an acronym for repeat, and the C is for cite, and the E is for extend. So it's an acronym that helps the student. The board did approve Progress Learning software. That particular software does have practice for all 14 type responses. So the students do see the drag and drop. They do see the, two out of the three. They do see answer A before you can go to answer B. They do see all of those type questions in their practice. There's also Lone Star ELA software, and that's a quick warm-up that's done every day in the classroom. That's actually on the Google books or the Chromebooks. That software is actually where the teachers download it, and the students actually show their work on their Chromebooks. Again, to practice, we do have the Sirius software that we purchased for all the EOC testers, so they could get practice also online. And then, of course, the CNI department under Ms. Judy Galindo and her team are working on the DMAC assessments, all online. A lot of work for the formatives and the summatives. So lots of practice opportunities. The final sheet, which is too small to actually review, is I wanted to remind the board of the 14 different type answer choices that the students are learning, right? The equation editor, the text entry, the graphing, number line, inline choices, hotspot, hot text, so forth. So those are the 14 type along with the definition. And we even included which content the student can expect to see that type of question so that the teachers know, if I'm a science teacher, I don't have to know all 14, I have to know the ones that will appear on the science test. So this information has been shared with all principals, with all teachers, and of course our students. Any questions?
Board members? Mr. Orfeld?
A couple, and I'll try and keep them short. After the benchmark information came back, and the teachers learned who made what, regardless of pass or not pass, were parents informed of what the benchmark scores were, or how their child did on the benchmark, so that they might help their student if needed?
One thing that we asked the principals, and it wasn't regardless of how they did, we asked that they specifically inform the parents of the kids that were struggling to heighten the assistance or the attendance at the tutoring. Sometimes when we do a general statement as to who passed, who failed, we have to recognize that it is a different benchmark. The open-ended questions were graded by our staff. I'm not saying that they weren't consistent with what the state or how the state is going to grade them, but there's just a lot of unknowns. But we did specifically ask principals to have contact with the parents of the kids that were struggling so that they could assist tutoring as was prescribed.
Okay. Second thing is, you talked about for the open-ended questions that require written response and the need for a rubric, and we're essentially guessing, right? Because you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but TEA is basically saying we're not going to give you any indication of what the rubric's going to be like. It's all going to be a surprise come test day, and when your scores come back, this is how we rubriced it.
We have a baseline. Mr. Overfeld, they're looking for keywords. So imagine trying to score something that has keywords. It doesn't mean that the word's not in the response. They don't get the score, but they're telling us if those keywords are in the response, the student's on the right track. Where it's difficult is that a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5? If a question has up to 10 points.
Oh yeah, what you were saying about the U.S. history questions having 20-something, 26-point, give or take, for a U.S. history question under this new system is, to censor myself, not nice. the way TA is being extremely shady about all this is not nice at all. But then again, I wouldn't expect anything less from that organization at this point in time, unpopular opinion. And then the last thing would be, you mentioned that CNI is going through and creating these different practice tests and whatnot for our teachers to use. What else, if any, is for the individuals who work in CNI, are they providing actual help and tutoring, mentoring inside the classroom? Do we have anyone within CNI that would serve that purpose? Because we're already piling so much on the teachers. There is CNI able to go into the schools and help out? Because when you look at the high school that has had a 0% pass rate on whatever it was, what are we leveraging besides our teachers who are already overworked and overstressed about all of this because it's a new system?
Sure, we have a CNI team of 3 people that are working on the instructional documents and trying to make DMAC work and doing the assessments. We don't have instructional coaches. We don't have, all those resources have been placed on the campus. Now, we study it a lot and we provide trainings to the principals and training to cluster leaders. A lot of the training we contract out either to the region or to NIET, but our curriculum department is working with DMAC and that. We don't have that kind of department, but we do bring in the region and NIET as much as we can to support.
Okay. And on that final thing there, congratulations, Ms. Pond, on Dr. Lonnie Green being one of the 5 finalists in the nation for that.
Phil, if I may, just,
yes.
There were 1 of 5 out of how many total schools across the United States?
9,000.
Yeah. 1 out of 5 out of 9,000 is
9,000 schools.
flipping impressive in there, so very, very good. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Orfeld. And yes, very proud of the accomplishments at Lonnie Green. I have talked to Dr. Rios greatly about that. I just want to say a couple of things about the STAR redesign. Again, one of the important things that happened this year, and it feels like we almost need to have town hall meetings, but so glad that we had a parental conference. Thanks to everyone, Ms. Adams and everyone else involved, because this is how we disseminate information to the parents and get them to assist us. I think we had great attendance. I wish I could have stayed for every session there. The other thing I just want to mention to principals is that as board members, we're asking for utilization reports on some of the software that we're spending money, district money, and purchasing for you. So we want to make sure that it's being utilized. So we're again, seeing utilization reports from the different campuses and then bringing attention to those campuses that might need to work on that. So I want to make sure that our students are prepared. Whenever we do Dr. Rios' evaluation, we always mention, PTOs, PTAs, how important they are to disseminate information to parents, because a lot of them are willing to assist us, and we need all the help we can get, especially, again, with the redesign of the STAR, something that I know it's going to be new to them, and it's not anymore multiple choice, so it'll be a lot more difficult. So I just want to bring attention to that, and I just, again, everything, communication that we have with parents is vital for us to be successful. So again, I thank you for the report. There's a lot of work that needs to get done, And, we have lots of improvement to make. So,
President Mesa.
anyone else with any questions?
I just want to say that this test is going to require for the students to have clear understanding of the material, of the content, because when they do their writing, they're going to have to analyze, and explain. And that might be it is difficult for many students, especially when they were used to just bubbling and stuff. So this is a hard task. And I can just imagine how difficult it is for the teachers also, that it's really like more help is needed, I think, in that to tutor and just these students will have to have just a very clear understanding of the context of the material in order for them to answer and pass. So it's a tough job, I think, right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Becky. And again, I really appreciate the principals being here. There's a lot of work that we expect from everyone. And again, you're the leaders on the campus, and I really appreciate your attendance at the meetings here. Next item we have is item 8D, intruder detection audit findings for Irene Cardwell, Ruben Chavita, and Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening, I'm going to be presenting to you a report on the findings of the intruder detection audits that were conducted at Ruben Chavita, Irene Cardwell, and Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary. Just a brief overview. The priority of the district and of the state of Texas certainly is keeping students safe and staff safe every day. The Texas School Safety Center does require that school districts across the state conduct school safety audits at campus statewide and within the Region Service Center. These audits are conducted as part of Governor Abbott's school safety directives for all school systems following the tragedy in Uvalde, and seeks to help districts identify how campus can best improve safety for students at their campuses. So the last intruder detection audit that was conducted on February the 9th, 2023 by Texas School Safety Center auditor was conducted at the 3 campuses I mentioned earlier at Dr. Fermin Calderon, Ruben Chavita, and Irene Cardwell schools. The audit consists of 3 parts. The first part is the intruder detection audit. The second part is the exterior door audit, in which we check the exterior doors, and the classroom door audit. For these corrective plans, during these audits, the first phase, the intruder detection audit findings, indicated that Ruben Chavita an inspector was able to gain unsecured access to the following campus, and there is a corrective action that is assigned for just this one phase for this campus. With regard to the exterior door audit, the results indicated that the Irene Cardwell Elementary campus did have 1 or more exterior doors that were not closed or properly locked. And so for this reason, a corrective action was assigned for this campus. And at the level 3, the phase 3, the classroom door audit, in this case, the campus was required to have their classroom doors locked and closed, and one of the classrooms at Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary was unlocked, and therefore corrective action was assigned for this campus. The corrective action plan that is required whenever we have these audits is that we notify the district school safety and security committee. We provide a meeting with them, and we provide them with information. That meeting took place on March the 8th. An in-person training has to be conducted at each of these campuses within 45 days of that audit. So we conducted trainings for the food service department on February 24th, Reuben Chavit Elementary on March the 2nd. For Irene Cardwell, we conducted that training on March the 7th, and we will be conducting training with Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary this coming Friday on March the 30th. So we are required to provide public notice, as we are doing this evening publicly at the next regular school board meeting. And all these corrective actions, signatures, and documentation must be submitted to the Texas School Safety Center, as I mentioned earlier, within the 45 days, and no later than April 20th. Are there any questions? I think this is the last spring.
Questions from board members? Sandra, I just want to thank you again for the lively discussions that we have in our safety meetings. I think there's a lot of good input from all the individuals that are on the committee. And the work that you do. I know that with the senseless shooting that happened today, those students practiced what they were supposed to do. They exited the building in a timely fashion, and they had a plan in action, and that's what needs to be done. And I know that we're preparing for the worst, and everything that you do is so important again, because again, we have great people on the committee, and thanks to your efforts and having these audits is going to make us better, because again,
Yes.
every finding that we have, we're going to make a corrective action plan so that we are better prepared in case it does happen. We never want it to happen, but we have to do those things in preparation. Mr. Orfeld, I knew you have a question.
No,
No
I'm
questions?
not gonna say anything.
Okay. All right, well, again, anyone else, Mr. Lindo?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the report.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, we have item 8E, Facilities and Construction Update. Israel Carrera.
Good evening, Board President Mesa, Dr. Rios, member of the school board. I have the facilities and construction report. Start out with the Ceniza Hills Elementary, and the Del Rio High School roofing replacement, and then the Cardwell to North Heights. In the Ceniza Hills Elementary project status, as you can see here, we have the block installation ongoing, and the EFS installation is also ongoing. On the next slide, we have painting is ongoing, is about approximately 65%. The ceiling grid ongoing is approximately 15%. And then the drywall installation is ongoing and is approximately 99%. And then the electricity, plumbing, and HVAC is continuing to progress. On this next slide, it's combination, our total fund balance is $1,243,416.79, and that's a combination of the soft cost and the contingency. And then the Del Rio High School roof replacement, it's complete. And then at the Cardwell move to North Heights is, we have exterior painting is ongoing, scheduled to be completed by mid-May. Additional circuits for sinks have been completed. And then added portable sinks to classrooms, those would be the other things that will be taking place as you read down the line, replace toilets, lower restroom sinks, interior painting, parking lot expansion and playground and park, and enclosed construction and new furniture. Are there any questions?
Board members? Okay, Israel, one item that I know that every time that it rains, even though we're in severe drought, I've talked to some of the city people about the drainage issue, mainly Agarita and intersection of Highway 90. And it seems like there's some other drainage issues. I saw some individuals working there thinking that it might be alleviated with digging, it seems like some of the culverts that are there. But in speaking with Mr. Sheedy, it seems to be coming from Kingsway area where the land is, again, draining whatever rains we get, very little rain, and it goes on to Agarita intersection, which is going to be very difficult. I know I mentioned this to Dr. Rios, but we need something done about that before we actually open up school. Dr. Rios, you want to mention anything about that?
Well, I just want to clarify something, Mr. Mesa and board members. The drainage issue in that part of town has gotten, I guess, some traction in the conversations. But I just want to share with the board and anybody listening that in the construction of Ceniza Hills, our architect, working with Mr. Chapa, ensured that we took care of the drainage that we were increasing because of the surface area that we covered. Now, the area that is right there at the base of Agarita, where some family members are going to be coming in from the lake, that does have to be addressed because on that 1 week when we get all of the rain we're going to get that year, it does create some fun. You can still pass, but you know there's a whole lot of splashing going on. I'll ask Mr. Chapa to meet with some of the people, whether it's the city or the state, see if we can come up with a solution for that. I know they have a long-range solution, but that's something that's going to be fixed by August. But we'll definitely have that conversation.
Yes, I just, it seems like, you know, the very little rain that we get, it just damages the pavement. And so there's going to be a very busy intersection. And I know it's kind of long-range planning. I'm not concerned with the immediate area, but this seems to be coming from Kingsway. The elevation is much higher, and so it drains coming back into the Agarita intersection. Whatever can be done, I really would appreciate that.
Okay.
Any questions on construction? I know we have a couple of items here dealing with the new school regarding to fencing coming up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll go on to the other maintenance and
Maintenance, yes.
technology.
The maintenance work orders report, for the maintenance part, the 0 to 15, we had 543 submitted, 491 closed for 90.4% completion. For 16 and 30, we had 154 submitted, 122 completed for 79.2%. For 31 to 60, we had 128 submitted and 90 completed were 70.3%. And then at 61 to 90 days, we had 1,050 with 826 completed for 78.7%. On the technology side, for 0 to 15, we had 1,918 submitted with 1,900 completed for 99.1%. For 16 to 30, we had 228 submitted with 211 completed for 92.5% completion. For 31 to 60, we had 159 submitted for 122 completed for 76.7%. And 61 to 90, we had 1,430 submitted with 1,387 completed for 97.0%. And for transportation, for 0 to 15, we had 146 submitted with 144 completed for 98.6%. 16 to 30, we had 30 submitted with 25 completed or closed in 83.3%. 31 to 60, we had 27 submitted with 25 closed for 92.6, and 32 submitted for 61 to 90, and 31 complete or closed for 96.9%. Any questions?
Board members?
Thank you.
I guess, Dr. Rios, later on, we can have a report in regard to the preparation before we get our all-electric buses, charging stations, and so forth,
Yes, sir.
like a timeline.
Yes, sir. There is a significant amount of time before the first two buses will be ready, but we'll definitely put the arrival of the buses as well as the creation of the charging stations and the infrastructure that we ourselves have to provide for those.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just want to mention again, we have 2 of our board members out for medical reasons. Again, the donations, if we could post those on the website, and we'll dispense on reading each one. Usually, Mrs. Webb does that. So if we could have those on the website, and we'll go on to the next item that we have, and it's consent agenda. Item 9 on the agenda. Again, there's some minutes and some meetings. If there's any corrections to the minutes, now's the time to correct them. If there's any question on any purchase item, there are some purchases, large ones that were made, that are on the consent agenda. If you would like to have any of those pulled out or questions answered, now's the time. Again, one action, will approve all items on the consent agenda. Yes, Mr.
I'd
Ro-
like to pull G1 for a separate vote.
Okay, G1 for a separate vote. G1 being consideration to approve a one-year contract extension over $5,000 with Brown & Brown Insurance Consultants, and a purchase order over $25,000 in the amount of $35,000 funding source, self-funded account, item G1. If we can have a separate vote on that one. Anyone else? If there's no questions to be answered, then I
Motion
will
to approve
entertain a motion.
as amended with the exception of G1.
Okay, Mr. Orfeld has made a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of G1. Is there a second? Mr. Galindo seconded. All those in favor? Becky, are you? Yes, motion carries unanimously. Okay. Mr. Orfeld?
I'd just like a separate vote on G1, on extending Brown & Brown's contract with us, dealing with insurance.
Okay.
I have reservations about about that company.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, again,
I'll read the recommendation.
okay, Mr. Dr. Rios.
For President Mesa, members of the board, it is a recommendation of the administration that the board trustees approve a one-year contract extension over $5,000 with Brown & Brown Insurance Consultants and a purchase order of $25,000 in the amount of $35,000.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? I'll make a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'm just calling for a separate vote, that's all it is.
Seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay, 4 affirmative votes. All those against? 1 negative vote. Motion carries. We go on to administration, item 10 on the agenda. First item that we have is technology and operations. 12, item 12A, Consideration to approve a change order with JP Construction Company Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $173,528. Funding source, bond proceeds for the fencing upgrade for Ceniza Hills Elementary School project. Israel Guerrero.
Good evening, Board President, again, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the school board. In the process of upgrading security of the perimeter fencing district-wide, the original construction documents included 3 different types of fencing. In an effort to standardize the fencing, and in order to match the proposed fencing elsewhere in the district, it is necessary to substitute the fencing specified in the contract. The proposed substitution will generate an increase for fencing items in the amount of $173,528. Any questions?
Dr. Rios, you want to elaborate on this a little bit?
Yes, sir. In working with the Board of Trustees to determine what type of safety measures we were going to provide to each campus, we discussed the mechanisms to lock every classroom door, to lock the building, the silent panic alert, and having an officer at every campus. We shared with the board that those measures in and of themselves met the expectation of the state. We also asked the board how they wanted us to allocate some of the safety money that we had set aside, and if they wanted us to consider adding a 6-foot fence to the campuses. The board indicated that they wanted that extra measure. The fence at Ceniza Hills doesn't meet that expectation. So rather than construct a fence that then we're gonna have to take down to upgrade it, we set the standard, we worked with the operations department, specifically Mr. Chapa, and we came up with a standard that we could apply to all other elementary campuses. Because Ceniza Hills is under construction, it makes sense to not erect a lesser fence to then have to upgrade it later. At Thursday's board meeting, at Thursday's budget workshop, we will share with you the remaining monies that we have available and the recommendations for which fences to erect next. I'll remind the board that we already started at Del Rio High School. The contract for the fence at Del Rio High School and the freshman is already being awarded to Frontera Construction. So that's why we're asking for the change order. If y'all recall the presentation that Mr. Carrera made a few minutes ago, there's significant money in the Ceniza Hills budget to cover this expense and more. So
Okay.
it's just moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you for, again, the detailed information. Any questions? Okay, the recommendation?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve a change order with JP Contraction Company Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $173,528 for the fencing upgrade for the Ceniza Hills Elementary School project.
For the recommendation from administration, motion made by Mr. Galindo. Is there a second, Mr. Orfeld? Seconded by Mr. Orfeld. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 12B, consideration to approve a change order with JP Construction Company Incorporated for a credit of $54,900. Funding source, bond proceeds for the Ceniza Hills Elementary School project. Israel Carrera.
Once again, Board President Mesa and Dr. Rios and members of the school board. The administration made a formal request for proposal for landscaping services. The proposal included seeding the park area and placing sod around the building. Construction documents including seeding in a portion of the property, and it is necessary to remove the seeding from that contract. As a result of the change, a contract credit is generated in the sum of $54,900.
Okay. Everyone understands? So this is credit, not an expenditure. Any questions? If not, recommendation, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the change order of JP Construction Company Incorporated for a credit of $54,900 for the Ceniza Hills Elementary School project.
For the recommendation, Motion made by Ms. Becky Chavez, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. All those in favor? Motion. Becky, you're voting? Becky?
Becky. I'm sorry.
Motion carries.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We've already done item 13A and B. We go on to item 14, Human Resources. A, consideration to approve the submission of the 2022-2023 request for maximum class size waiver exception to TA Ade Garcia.
Good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. As you know, every month we conduct a class size waiver to see if there's any classrooms that are over the 22-to-1 ratio. And this month, the survey was conducted on March the 10th, and we identified 2 classrooms at Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary. One of them is a 4th grade general ed classroom, 23-to-1 ratio, and the other one is a bilingual education beginner intermediate, 4th grade, also with 23-to-1 ratio. Any questions?
Dr. Rios, having been a bilingual teacher, it's very difficult to plan for so many different levels of students in a bilingual class, and it makes it very difficult to add more students to a bilingual class.
Yes, sir. That's why we give them preference to have instructional aides, and specifically when we reduce them. I wish there was more teachers. Now, we have aides that we can continue to provide assistance, and I know that doesn't solve all the problems, but we're absolutely aware of it, Mr. Mayor.
Now, does this class have a full-time aide or part-time aide?
Full-time.
Full-time? Full-time.
And if they don't, they will, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure, again, they need all the help they can get. It's very difficult to do lesson planning when you have so many different levels. Okay. Recommendation, please.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask a question on this. So both classrooms have a full-time aide?
No, ma'am.
Just
a
one?
bilingual.
Just bilingual?
Anyone else? You good with
So
that?
will we get somebody else for the other class? Non-bilingual? We're gonna try to get an aide? No?
No, ma'am. No, the principal can provide assistance as necessary, but not a full-time aide. It's just, it'd be impossible to match that everywhere we have that.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay, recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the 22-23 request for maximum class size waiver exception to TA and the compliance plan.
For the recommendation, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez. Is there a second to the motion? Motion made by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 14B, consideration to approve the 2023-2024 school year calendar. Ade Garcia.
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-2024 school year calendar as presented.
Okay, we've already gone over this item. Mr. Galindo has made a motion. Is there a second? Becky Chalice has made a motion or a second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We go on to the next item, consideration 14C, consideration to approve the conversion of Chief Operations Officer to Chief Innovative Officer, Aite Garcia.
Yes, sir. As the district creates new innovative programs such as the elementary STEM, dual language, New Tech Middle School, New Tech High School, and P-Tech, administration is requesting to convert the Chief Operation Officer to a Chief Innovative Officer.
Okay. And I've asked Dr. Rios some questions in regard to the salary. It will remain the same, Dr. Rios?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Anyone else with a question? Yes, Mr. Galindo.
By when, Dr. Rios, are you looking to have this position hopefully filled? I know we still have a chief operations officer through the year, but by when are you gonna be looking at hopefully having this person on board.
Not to put Israel's business out there for all of Del Rio, but he is leaving first week in May. So we're going to work out the funding, and then just as soon as possible, because there's extensive work to be done over the summer. So I would like to make a recommendation in May.
And thank you, Mr. Carrera. Appreciate everything you've done for us as well.
Thank you for the fine work you've done, sir. Yeah, we're gonna miss you. Okay, question, Becky?
So really, in essence, it's gonna be just a title change,
Title and personnel.
Title I personnel.
The job
Same
des-
pay.
I'm sorry?
Is salary the same?
Yes, it's the same pay grade.
Okay. We're good? Recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the conversion of Chief Operations Officer to Chief Innovative Officer.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Mr. Galindo. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Overfeld, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14D, consideration to approve the conversion of construction manager to operations director. Idea Garcia.
Yes, sir. As the district converts the position of Chief Operations Officer to Chief Innovative Officer, administration will request to convert the construction manager to Operations Director. This position will oversee the maintenance and operations department previously supervised by the Chief Operation Officers.
Again, with no salary increase, correct?
No, I'm sorry, sir, there is a correction to that one. The directors all are at a certain pay grade, so that one does carry a significant amount of responsibilities, and it'll be in line with the transportation director and the other directors in the building. It's not a huge pay raise, but it is a pay raise,
That will be shared with you during closed session.
yes.
Yeah, I know I had sent you some questions from Austin when we were in Austin.
You did, sir, but that
It's the
wasn't one of the
correction.
ones that was listed on there. It was the other position.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so this is a change in salary, changing.
But you're not approving the salary right now, that's, we'll
No,
discuss
no,
that. in
yeah,
session.
we'll have to do the job descriptions and evaluation forms later. Right now, we're approving the title change. Anyone else with a question? If not, no questions, recommendation?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the conversion of construction manager to operations director.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Bless you. Motion made by Mr. Orfeld is seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14G, consideration and possible action to approve employee job descriptions and evaluation forms. Idea Garcia.
We still have the network specialist.
Oh.
to manage.
Computer technician to school safety. Okay.
There's one
I-
before that one, the network
Oh.
specialist.
Item E, okay, 14E, consideration to approve the conversion of network specialist to energy manager. Idea Garcia.
Yes, sir. Currently, we have a vacancy for a network specialist, and we would like to convert this position to an energy manager. This position will promote energy conservation across the district.
Okay. I have a question here, Dr. Rios, if you could. I know that we have done a lot to change everything from lighting to LED and to conserve energy in so many different ways, and I know that we have a contractor that has done lots of work for us and is guaranteed savings at the end of the year. Is this in addition to the efforts that we have tried to conserve energy?
Yes, Mr. Mesa, when I shared with you all the budget reductions for this coming year and how we would make up a projected deficit, I shared with you that there was a huge opportunity to further save on energy management. And this was one of the strategies. We believe that the money, first, it's not additional money because we're reducing personnel in the technology department. So it's not additional money, but it is having one person just oversee all of the ACs that aren't working, where it's a thermostat in the classroom so it doesn't get too cold and uses more energy than it's supposed to. Follow up on doors that may be not sealing correctly. Ensuring that the lights are turned off, that all of those pieces work. So it's not extra money because we're converting a position, but it is putting more resources in that department.
I'm trying to recall the name of the consultant we hired.
That's from
Schneider Electric.
Yes, sir. And we have visited with Schneider, and we have talked to them about whoever this individual will be, training them and having a very close partnership so that we can follow the trends and identify more areas to save. So it'll be in partnership with that.
Okay. Right now, I have lots of questions, but this is a name change conversion, so we'll get into more detail later on this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, recommendation.
It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the conversion of network specialist to energy manager.
Heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14F, consideration to approve the conversion of computer technician to school safety specialist, Aida Garcia.
Administration is requesting to convert one computer technician position to a school safety specialist. This position will be responsible for managing the safety and body cameras, video requests, manage account usage, and in addition, manage the account codes for the alarm, troubleshoot fire alarm panels.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? No questions. Recommendation, please.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the conversion of a computer tech position to school safety specialist.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Overfeld. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item G, 14G, consideration, discussion, possible action to approve employee job descriptions and evaluation forms. Aida Garcia.
Yes, sir. In your packet, you have the job evaluations and job descriptions for all these positions that we are creating for the conversions. And that includes the management assistant to campus principal. This is a new position. This position came about because this year, coming year, we're going to have a need of 7 assistant principals. So if we do not find the certified candidates for assistant principal, then we can post this position to help the principals alleviate some of their assistants. So that's why this position was created.
If I make just one slight comment on that, if we either don't find certified individuals or people who have finished their master's and are currently working on a certification that can get it done, those will be our first options. 7 positions is a lot, but reviewing today some of the applicants and a couple of the other people that are still left to apply, that with a couple of outside applicants, it is a possibility that we won't have to use this position, but should we use it or should we need it, it's just good to have a strategy already. But again, that's not our first option.
And the pay grade different, right? Pay grade 4
Yes.
and AP is pay grade 5.
Yes, ma'am, it would be
Is
just
that
a
because
lower
of the
pay grade.
Master, okay.
The next one is the Chief Innovation Officer. Again, this is the conversion from the operating officer, and that is included in your board packet. The Chief Instructional Officer was converted to Chief Academic Officer, so it's just a name change for that one. Then we also included the conversion for the School Safety Specialist, the Director of Operations, and the Energy Manager. So all the job descriptions are in your board book, along with the evaluations as well. Any comments on those job descriptions or evaluation forms?
Any questions?
I have a statement, not a question, but I really thank you for including what I had requested also, the job description and the duties and everything on these new hirees or the ones that are converted, so thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Anyone else? Okay, recommendation, please.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the employee job description and evaluation forms as discussed.
Got the recommendation, entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Mrs. Gonzalez, seconded by Becky Chalice. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we go on to item 14H, consideration to approve the updated district compensation plans. Ade Garcia.
The only updates that we have to our compensation plan is, again, the new positions that we're adding or conversions that we're adding. So under pay grade 1, we have the energy manager, and that is 241 days to be in line with all the other coordinators in that same pay grade. And pay grade 4, we have the management assistant to campus principal, and that is 220 days. We have pay grade 5, we're removing the construction manager from the compensation pay plan. Under pay grade 6, we're adding the director of operations. And under pay grade 9, we're removing the chief instructional officer and the chief operations officer to include the chief academic officer and the chief innovation officer. Then the other change that we're including in the compensation pay plan is under paraprofessional pay plan, and that is under 7, which is page 348, and we're including the school safety specialist. Those are all the changes that we have for the compensation pay plan. Any questions about the compensation pay plan?
So, Dr. Rios, the school safety specialist remains, it's a lateral move?
Yes, sir. The school safety specialist was the position that they were previously in. It's the same pay grade, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. But it didn't exist before, but the network specialist that was there, it's the same pay grade, so it's not gonna be any.
So I'm just, I didn't read the entire job description, but if it's a management position, or a specialist compared to a technician, I'm just, time to discuss. I always go with added responsibilities, if there's added responsibilities.
So, I think that, well, it's not that I think, I'm certain that when we talk about safety, it does take an increased responsibility because we're talking about the safety of students. If we talk about the specific job and the description, there is a lot of similarities to what was previously done. So I think that because we need to move forward, we can approve it, and I'll study it further and bring you a recommendation at one of our upcoming budget meetings or at the April meeting. Is that appropriate?
That would be fine. I look out for employees, that want to move up and we take a person from the same pay grade and, you know, our hopes are to have added responsibilities, but at the same time, you know, whatever increase would be appreciated. And thank you for taking that into consideration. There's still time to do that. But as far as the pay grade scale, I'm fine. I mean, for the time being, we're approving it right now.
And we always send them to TASB just so that they can let us know under what pay grade they fall, but we can definitely review it with them as well, again.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Everyone understand that?
Yes, because I had questioned that too with Ms. Garcia. I felt that the responsibilities taken by this specialist, you know, safety specialist, is quite a bit. And so I felt that maybe we should look at the pay increase because of all the responsibilities that moving from what was what was it, a tech to
Computer
a
tech.
specialist in
Indeed.
safety, and that requires a lot of extra work. So I would like to see a comeback on that as far as looking into it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Becky. With that being said, no other questions, recommendation?
It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the updated 2022-2023 district compensation plans as presented.
For the recommendation, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Ms. Sorrell. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. There being no other items, we're going on to item 17, pursuant to policy 551.074 and 551.071. We will go into closed session. Again, if an item needs to be voted on, it will be taken upon reconvening into open session. The time is 8:12 p.m. We're now in closed session. Thank you. Okay, the time is 9:29 p.m. No action was taken in executive session. We're reconvening into open session. We're down to item 18 on the agenda. Item 18A, consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. Idea Garcia.
That item is tabled due to no recommendations. We just have the adjustment.
Okay. We go on to the next item, 18B, consideration to approve salary and/or contract adjustments.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the salary adjustment for Mr. Hector Chapa and the superintendent's contract adjustments as discussed in closed session.
For the recommendation from administration, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Becky Chavez. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Dr. Rios, do you have any reports this time, sir?
No, Mr. President, just a reminder to the Board of Trustees that we do have our first budget workshop this Thursday. This Thursday, 3 days from today, here at the SPC.
What time, sir?
I believe it's at 5:30. 5:30, sir.
Okay, great.
It's
All right,
5:30.
well, there being no other items on the agenda, is there a motion for adjournment? Motion made by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night, everyone.